Hello, my Belf 1000 Nation. How's everyone doing today? Hopefully, everyone's having a great day. If not, I hope it gets better from here. We are back with a new MrBallen video. It's a long one, too, from what I've seen. All right. This one's titled Top 5 Bingeable Scary Stories. Strangest of the Strange... Strangest of the Strange Edition. Mature audience. Well, video's already over. That was fast. Oh, shit. All right. It's going to be a long one. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. Go ahead, turn them lights down low, put on something comfy, cup with something special. Let's get scared out of our minds. It's in the title. We're using it.
Today, we have a special video for you guys. It's a collection of 5 stories, and the very first story you'll hear is a brand new story, and the other 4 are fan favorites that are all a good reminder that sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. Now, those 4 fan favorites have all been re-edited for today's episode, so even if you've seen or heard them before, this will feel like a new viewing experience.
But what if we haven't seen them or heard them before, and we're doing it in a specific order, MrBallen? Oh, shit. Hold on. Hold on. Give me 1 second. I will be right back. Let me see if we've seen these videos. If we have, we'll go ahead and watch it. If we haven't, I don't know. Fuck it. Let's just... I don't... I really would hate the order to mess up the order that we've been watching them in. For those of you that don't watch on Fridays or do watch on Fridays and haven't really paid attention, on Fridays we put out old MrBallen videos until we get caught up to the new ones. And the way I've been doing it, I start at the very top and I've been working myself down. And I have skipped a few videos that I know for a fact that I have done. But other than that, we have done them in order. I guess we'll just, I don't know. Let's see how long this first story is and we'll go from there, I reckon.
And just a reminder, I'm actually on tour right now. Not literally, because I'm actually filming this in advance, but by the time you hear this, I'm gonna be on tour. And if you wanna follow along and see some behind the scenes footage, make sure you follow my Instagram account. My handle is just MrBallen. But before we get into today's 5 stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place, because that's all we do, and we upload once a week. So if that's of interest to you, the next time the like button is writing something very important, go up and nudge their elbow. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's stories.
I've been on the other side of that, and it's not fun. I just want you to know, MrBallen, sometimes writing is very important, and it doesn't need to be messy. Yeah.
On the evening of January 13th, 2002, a 42-year-old man named Ronald Huff walked in the door of his studio apartment in the city of Newark, Delaware. He had just come back from visiting his grandmother, and now he was feeling really sick. Inside of his apartment, it was blazing hot, but that was by design. That's how he kept the temperature. Ronald took off his coat and threw it over one of the many handmade wooden cages that were strewn about his living room. Then he dragged himself over to his house phone, picked it up, and he called the auto dealership where he worked. When the office manager answered, Ronald told her that he would not be able to come into work the following day because he was feeling so unwell. He hung up the phone and then leaned on the counter for a second, feeling lightheaded. Then suddenly, from behind him, he heard a hiss. Right away, Ronald turned around and walked over to his fridge, and instinctively, he reached out his right hand to open the door. But as soon as he grabbed the handle and squeezed, he felt a shot of pain in his right hand. He had forgotten that his right hand was all bandaged up because it was injured. And so grimacing, Ronald reached out with his left hand and he opened up the fridge that way. Then, after shutting the fridge, he walked over to the kitchen counter and he reached into a jar and he pulled out a whole fistful of live cockroaches. They were about 2 inches long each and they wriggled around inside of his hand. He threw the cockroaches onto the ground and then watched as they scattered. Now that Ronald's chores were finished, he decided he would just go lay down, because again, he's feeling horrible. But as he walked across the kitchen towards his bedroom, that dizziness he was feeling earlier came back. And suddenly it was like the whole world was spinning around him and he could barely stay on his feet. He kept trying to walk towards his bedroom, but he just couldn't do it. And eventually he stumbled and began to fall. Ronald lurched sideways and blindly stumbled to the right, trying to catch himself. And the first thing he touched with his outstretched arm was the door to his apartment.
Oh,
so
that's
he
good.
grabbed it and he tried to stay on his feet, but he couldn't. And so he turned his body around and pressed his back up against the door to steady himself. But he was just so woozy and weak that eventually he just kind of slouched down to the ground, back against the door, feet out in front of him. Slowly, he let his eyes close. As Ronald passed out, all he could hear were the sounds of roaches scurrying and chicken bones crunching. 3 days later, Ronald's neighbor heard the crackle of police walkie-talkies out in the hallway. He opened his door and he saw 2 police officers and the superintendent of their building standing in front of Ronald's door. So this neighbor liked Ronald and knew him to be a nice, quiet guy, and so he couldn't imagine why police would be at his door. But then he thought about it, and he actually hadn't seen Ronald in several days.
Oh shit, he really is dead.
The neighbor watched as the police officers knocked on Ronald's door, waiting for Ronald to come out, but the door never opened. And after a few minutes of knocking, the police finally stepped back from the door and gestured for the superintendent to step forward and use his key to open the door. And then after the superintendent had done that, the neighbor watched as the police officers tried to open the door, but couldn't. It was like there was something really heavy blocking the door from opening.
Body.
Finally, both police officers leaned hard enough on the door that they got it.
What's in the wooden cages? Why is he throwing roaches and why are chicken bones snapping? Does he have some sort of like reptile of sorts in his apartment running free? Because he just threw him in the floor. He didn't even put him in one of the wooden cages.
To open up just a little bit. The neighbor watched as the officers stuck their heads into the apartment and then jumped back with their hands on their guns. Then one of the cops grabbed their radio and began frantically talking into it, and then the neighbor watched as the officers and the superintendent quickly walked down the hallway out of sight, leaving Ronald's apartment door partially open. And as the neighbor heard the sound of sirens wailing outside, he took a cautious step into the hallway and realized he could actually see into Ronald's apartment through the open door. And what he saw inside of there was so horrifying that for a second, the neighbor just froze. And then a second later, he backed into his own apartment and slammed the door behind him. Hours later, this neighbor could not get the image of what he had seen in Ronald's apartment out of his head. So he grabbed a piece of paper and just began sketching the bizarre scene. It would turn out Ronald had a secret. And on the evening of January 13th, 2002, right after Ronald had called in sick to his work, that secret killed him. Here is the picture that the neighbor drew of what he saw inside of Ronald's apartment. On the floor is Ronald's dead body. His face, his ears, his hands, and his internal organs had all been eaten. And surrounding Ronald were the giant monitor lizards that he was secretly keeping as pets. He had 7 of them, which he fed roaches and raw chicken and allowed to just free roam his apartment. They ranged in size from 2 feet to 6 feet long. These are massive lizards. And unfortunately for Ronald, not only are monitor lizards carnivores, but also their mouths are filled with deadly bacteria. The reason Ronald's hand was bandaged up, his right hand, is because one of his lizards, a week prior to his death, had bit his hand, and the bacteria had given him this horrible staph infection. And it was that staph infection, a week later, that very likely caused him to pass out inside of his apartment. And then after that, he was eaten by the lizards. Now, it's assumed he died from the staph infection and then was consumed. However, the autopsy couldn't prove that, and so it is possible he may have been still alive when they began to eat him. After Robert's death, his lizards were taken from his apartment and placed in the Catoctin Wildlife Preserve and Zoo in Thurmont, Maryland. Shot multiple times, drenched in blood. The scene in the basement was far more gruesome than
What the fuck? Is he Marvel now? MrBallen part of the MCU? All right. Well, that is the end of the new episode of that. So, like I said, I really don't want to watch the older videos remastered. So, what we're going to do is we're going to do like we did the last one. After we have seen them, we will rewatch the remastered ones. Sound good? Is that at least a compromise that we can all agree on? Because that will irritate the living shit out of me, knowing that we've watched something before we watched it. Makes sense? And I really like watching stuff new with you guys. And I really hate to watch these now and then miss out on four full videos. You know what I mean? So yeah, we're gonna cut it here. I'm gonna make a note of it in my trusty little notepad over there.
Handy dandy notebook.
And we'll make a note of, because there's already one in there of the last video. So we'll make a note of this one too. Once we've watched all of the videos that are in those two videos, we will go back through and we will completely rewatch from beginning to the end the way it's supposed to be. Sound good? And I'll make them their own, like, standalone or something. I don't know. All right. Yeah, we're going to call it there. All right. If y'all enjoyed today's story, go down there, hit the like button. If you guys can't wait to see these videos done before we do the remaster, definitely hit that subscribe button. That way you know whenever they start popping up. And definitely don't forget that bell. You gotta ding it. You gotta ding that bell. That way you know when they popping up, bruh. As always, be good to one another. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. MrBallen, you're making my job very difficult. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. We still love you, though.